Hi, I'm Tom Dalton, host of the Emmy Award-winning PBS television program Under the Radar Michigan, where every week we feature the cool people, places, and things that make Michigan a great place to be. Now in May, the National Main Street Conference is going to be right here in the city of Detroit. And there's so much cool stuff happening in Detroit right now, you're not going to believe it. What, you don't believe it? Check this out. The name the Detroit Film Theater is one of those names that, well, in one way it describes exactly what this place is. It's a theater that shows films in Detroit. But on the other hand, it really doesn't do justice to how cool this place is or why it's so important to the city of Detroit.
And who better to explain that than founder and curator Elliot Wilhelm? Man, I thought I loved movies.
Before we get into talking about the film theater, I wanted to get a better sense for your history. So if you could, Elliot, may I call you Elliot?
Certainly can.
Thank you. Give me your best. I've got 60 seconds to impress that girl over there and tell her how I became a film expert.
Well, it's probably not going to impress her because I didn't do sports when I was a kid. I didn't do the stuff that other kids did except go to the movies. And that's pretty much what I did, at least every Saturday. When other kids were running around doing regular kid stuff, I went to the matinees about giant insect movies and dangers from outer space and was completely hooked on movies from the age of really 5 or 6. And the problem is I just never stopped. And it just kept going and going and going. And loving movies the way I did, what I really enjoyed doing was taking other people to movies that I really liked. And that, in a sense, is what led to the profession I have now, which is to bringing films to a larger public and bringing films that I think are important, wonderful, and significant in some way to the largest audiences I can possibly scare up.
I would definitely encourage anybody to come down.
There's a richness to the variety of films and events that you're allowed to see.
If you love films, if you love, art, culture, it's a great experience.
It's an opportunity to really get involved and to see films and things that you wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to see in another venue.
And I just have a great time coming down.
It's a whole end of the spectrum that people are missing if they're just going to see the big Hollywood blockbusters.
Well, it's a different way of seeing a film, and of course we have nothing against Hollywood blockbusters. In fact, I think the term independent film is often misinterpreted because people tend to think of independent film as something that is made cheaply, made on your parents' credit cards.
Right.
But independent film can be a film of any budget at all, as long as the vision is a passionate one and an independent one.
It's just not a part of the giant studio system.
Often. But even studio films like, say, The Godfather years ago, those I consider to be independent visionary movies, even though they were based on a big bestseller and were wildly popular. They were clearly made by an artist who wanted to tell a story and to tell a story well. So we don't discriminate against a movie just because it was expensive to make. And we also don't discriminate against movies just because they were inexpensive to make. The only distinction we make is that somebody really wanted to tell a story and to tell that story passionately as possible. It's great to have a theater like this that's actually used. One of the wonderful things about this place is that people do use it. So it is an important site, not just historically, not just because, yes, here's a beautiful old theater that used to get used. It's a beautiful old theater that still gets used, and people are just delighted to see it and to use it. You come here on a Friday evening and you watch people going through the DIA and having a good time, listening to music, going to the restaurant, looking at the art, coming to see a film in here. I mean, it's a really major pleasure center. It's not just a museum. It's a destination for a lot of reasons. And seeing a film here is a destination for a lot of people and has been for decades.
All right, so yes, as the name suggests, the Detroit Film Theater is a theater that shows films. And yes, it's in Detroit. But once you've experienced it, I guarantee you'll need a lot more words than that to tell your friends about it. You'll also need a lot of words to tell your friends about all the great things going on in Detroit right now. Because there are so many that, well, I just don't have enough words. And that's a first.
I just have one final question for you, and be honest with me. Did you cry when Bruce Willis was left on that asteroid in Armageddon? Be honest.
Yes, because he wasn't left sooner.